morning. My name is Margaret Smart, and I am the Walking with People in Poverty Program Coordinator at the Mennonite Central Committee of Ontario. I'm also a member of Avon Church, and I was invited today to share with you a bit about the work that I'm doing and the work that MCC is a part of, and that really you're a part of, because I know that the people at Avon Mennonite are big supporters of the Mennonite Central Committee, and that many of you have served yourselves, that many of you are volunteers at our thrift shops or in our programs. Many of you are generous donors to the Mennonite Central Committee. And so I want to start simply by saying thank you for your support for the work that we do together in the world in order to share the love and the compassion of Christ with everyone. Specifically in my program, we focus on people who are struggling with homelessness, with income security, food security, who are searching for decent work, who are experiencing barriers of marginalization, specifically around poverty issues. And so I'm glad today to tell you a bit about the programs that I support and the work that volunteers like you are doing in order to walk with people in poverty. Walking with people in poverty sounds like a big job. How do we do that? We know that poverty is a huge barrier, that it is difficult for people to engage, to join in community, to participate when they are struggling to feed themselves, when they're struggling to know where they're going to live that night. And so how do we come alongside? How do we walk with people, honoring their dignity, honoring their stories, and being a support and loving them with the love of Christ? In the programs that I support, I'd like to tell you a couple of stories of how that's done. The first one is the Circle of Friends. And Circle of Friends is literally that, a circle of friends. A group of volunteers and a program facilitator who come around somebody who has experienced homelessness and is transitioning in their lives into more stable housing, which is a good thing. But transitioning from homelessness, which requires a set of skills to survive, to live, and a community that is on the street supporting you and coming alongside you there, into an apartment where you're sitting alone, can be a really isolating and difficult thing. The challenges that brought a person to experiencing homelessness will still exist, even with a stable home. A Circle of Friends is a group of volunteers that come around and form a community around that person. And they commit to a year of journeying together. Sometimes what that looks like is a year of meeting once a week for a coffee. And when I first started working in this program, someone said to me, "Really, Margaret? What difference does it make to somebody to drink coffee once a week with 2 or 3 people? How is that life-changing for anyone?" And I was talking to one of our facilitators, and he had the same question. And he posed it to the participant that he was supporting. He and this participant and 2 volunteers had been meeting in a coffee shop for a couple of months, once a week, to have a conversation. And he sat down with the participant and he said, "You know, what does this mean to you? Like, is this actually doing it for you? Is this what you want from this program? Is just for the 4 of us to sit in a coffee shop every week and drink a cup of coffee?" Because he noticed that this person didn't have a lot to say and that, well, he was enjoying the company. He didn't know, was this meaningful? Did this matter? And the gentleman turned to our staff member and he said, "Are you kidding? This is the best thing that's ever happened to me." And when I thought about that, if you think of someone who's experiencing homelessness, they are not welcomed in a coffee shop. They stand outside, maybe someone gives them some money. If they go in, they're looked at. People want them to move on as quickly as possible. And suddenly this man had a group of friends, just like anyone else, that he met with at a coffee shop, and he didn't talk about trauma, and he didn't talk about the hard things in life. He talked about the weather, and they talked about hobbies, and they just enjoyed each other's company. It was the best thing that had ever happened to him. I think of another participant, and we had transitioned during COVID to meeting online, and this is a young woman, and they helped her to figure out how to Zoom. And she had 2 volunteers that every week they would come online and they would all Zoom together, as we kind of hate doing, but was all we had. And during their conversation, one of the volunteers said to her, "It's your birthday coming up. Gwen, what are you going to do for your birthday?" And Gwen kind of looked sad. And she said, "Oh, I don't know, probably not much." Well, the birthday to you or I or to many, many people is a cause for celebration. But during COVID, she couldn't be with anybody who was her friends, not even her circle. Because of the circumstances of her life, she was very, very alienated from her family. And she didn't have a lot of money. Her birthday was coming near the end of the month. So what might be a cause for celebration or joy for her was actually accentuating her isolation and her loneliness and her barriers. And so the volunteer just sort of invited her, well, what could you do? And she said, "Well, I was thinking I might get takeout food, but it is the end of the month and I don't really have much money." And as they were talking, the second volunteer suddenly disappeared from the screen. And the facilitator was sort of thinking, well, she comes and goes because she has a young family. So maybe she's just gone off to take care of one of her children and she'll be back. Well, she was back a few minutes later, and she was waving a package, and she said, "This is the meal that you like from that Indian food takeout place. And I get it at Food Basics for $2. It's cheap, it's delicious, and it is as good as any takeout I've ever had. Gwen, you should go and you should get this from Food Basics." And Gwen was like, "Really? That is the one that I like. Okay, I'll try it. $2? I can do $2. And then the other volunteer, who is an elderly lady, and she's had many birthdays, and celebrating wasn't all that big a deal to her. But she saw an opportunity and she said, "You know what? I'm going to go and I'm going to buy that too from Food Basics, and we'll all buy it and we'll all have it on your birthday. And we will remember you and we will celebrate you on that day, even though we can't be together in person." Lots of us would have been tempted to try and rescue Gwen, to give her some money, to order her takeout, to make things better, to try and prop it up by what we could give to her. But what those 2 women did was meet her in the place that she was in. And they found a way to celebrate with her and to celebrate her in a way that honored her, that dignified the place she was in her life, that didn't emphasize the differences between them, but instead came alongside and celebrated together. The thing I love about that story is that at the end of it, everybody got fed. And I think sometimes when we think about walking with people in poverty, it seems exhausting. It seems like we are going to give so much and we are going to do so much. But everybody got fed by coming alongside and meeting one another in a place of honor. I think when I talk about walking with people in poverty, about the other program that I get to support, and that's called the Raw Carrot. And the Raw Carrot is a workspace for people who are on long-term disability, where, again, volunteers come alongside and they join our staff participants and they make soup together. They make amazing, delicious soup, which you can buy at the New Hamburg thrift store, which is just down the road. Our participants at the Raw Carrot are all there because they have experienced barriers to traditional employment places. Many of them have mental health struggles. Some of them have developmental challenges that they live with, all of which make it difficult for them to work in a traditional work setting. We provide a compassionate space so that if someone is having a rough day and their efficiency isn't maybe what we would want it to be or need it to be even, we recognize they showed up to work that day. They came and they're giving what they have to give. We walk alongside people and help them grow in their skills and their abilities at their own pace. The staff members, again, it's amazing to me because they talk about what difference the work means to them. Being able to get up every day and go to work that they value, to create something that's delicious and that's wonderful and that people want. And what that means for them in their life and the confidence and the wellness that that brings to them and the health that it generates, just having work and purpose. But they also talk about what it means to them that they earn a bit more income that helps to offset their long-term disability payments that they receive. And with that money, they're able to participate in life. They're able to join in groups that they might not have been able to afford to, able to contribute to their community. One of our young men, he talks about how when he sees on the news something that's happening, he now has money that he can donate to causes he believes in and what that means to him. We also, at the Walking with People in Poverty program, recognize that while these programs can be life-changing for individuals, there are systems and barriers that need to be addressed. And so we are really excited right now that we have a new position that's just developed that is an advocacy position specifically. The person in that role is able to help bring the people that we come alongside and listen to their voices and lift their voices up and help people to know what needs to be done in order to eliminate barriers that leave people in places of poverty. He's an advocate towards our government. He's a resource for our constituency, and he is a listening ear and an empowering space for people with lived experience of homelessness and poverty to share their priorities. We also have a group called the People's Action Group, which again are people who have lived experience of homelessness. And they provide their advice and their guidance to any organization in the Waterloo region that is interested in addressing these issues. Most recently, you might have heard about the House of Friendship, which is creating a new shelter in Waterloo. And in the process of creating that new shelter and building it, they came to the People's Action Group, people who have lived in shelter, and asked them, what do we need to think about? How do we need to create this space in a way that is dignified, in a way that gives people the space they need to heal and to continue their journey in their lives in a way that honors where they have come from and helps them move to where they want to go? The People's Action Group is passionate about advocating for people who have experienced homelessness and are experiencing homelessness. Those are some of the things that I get to be a part of in the role that I have. I hope, though, that what you have heard is that walking with people in poverty, it sounds big and it sounds hard. And sometimes it is. But mostly what it means is meeting people in small spaces, over a cup of coffee, buying a bowl of soup, chopping some vegetables in community with people, and helping them to work and have meaning in their lives. It means showing up to the small places. And those small places add up to a changed way of understanding poverty, to a changed way of breaking down barriers and being with people. It is small things that matter. And I hope that you will hear in that, because I think that it is biblical. I think that it's what God teaches us. Through the life of Jesus, we see so many times when he fed people. And I love that the stories don't say the disciples stood back while everybody got fed. Everybody gets fed. I love that Jesus' stories talk about small pieces of leaven that make the bread expand, and everybody gets fed. I love that when God works in small ways, amazing things happen for many people. And so I just want to encourage you that any way that you have supported the Mennonite Central Committee, through a donation, through a purchase of raw carrot soup, through a volunteer hour given here, there, or anywhere, through a quilt that has been made, through a hygiene kit that has been donated. Every gesture means something significant. Every gesture brings us together more in community, and the kingdom of God comes. Thank you.